Hello and welcome to Whisky Resource. My name is Mark. This is review number 114. Today I have a sample that has been kindly provided by Brian of Brian's Malt Musings. You can catch up with all of Brian's activities on Twitter. His handle is @maltmusings. So Brian sent me a few samples. I haven't got around to trying any of them yet, unfortunately, Brian. I'm starting now with this one, which is a bourbon. So that is Brian's handle there, and that's the whiskey he sent me. It is the Wilderness Trail Kentucky Straight Bourbon, bottled in bond, single barrel. This is bottled at a healthy 50% ABV. It is, as American rules for bourbon stipulate, natural colour. It is also non-chill filtered. 50% ABV. Now, bottled in bond, it's not a term that I've used because there's not been any bottled in bond reviews I've done, so I'm just going to give a quick description from the web as to what bottled in bond means. So bottled in bond is a designation that mandates that brands clear numerous rigorous hurdles. The spirit must be aged for a minimum of 4 years. Well, the Wilderness guys say it's bottled between 5 and 6 years, so for age we're going to say it's 5, and bottled at precisely 100 proof, 50% ABV, which is what this is. It must be made by one distiller at a single distillery in one season, and then aged in a bonded warehouse overseen by the US government officials. So that's a brief explanation as to what a bottled in bond is. So Wilderness Trail, their website, all details will be down there in the description in the link to my website with the review, but their website is wilderness-trail-distillery.com. They do a fair few different whiskies with different types of mash bill. Go and check them out, but with regards to this particular whiskey, it has a mash bill of 64% corn, 24% wheat, and 12% malted barley. And they use their own yeast strains. Interestingly enough, there's no rye in here, so I'm not expecting to have that kind of licoricey, aniseedy spice note that you can often get with rye heavy American whiskies. It is widely available in the UK in a I believe it's a 70 cl. Oh no, it's a 75 cl bottle that you can pick up in the UK. So they don't change the bottle sizes for the UK market, which is good to see, because quite often we get 50 ml less than the standard American bottle size. But in terms of prices, you can pick it up from the Whisky Exchange for £64.95, same price at Masters of Malt. The Whisky World, they undercut them by 5p at £64.90, and you can also pick it up from the Little Whisky Shop for £64.90 as well. That gives it an average of £64.93. But given it's only a 5p difference between the highest and the cheapest, it's not a massive amount. Value scores and my overall rating, again, you'll be familiar with going to the website, and if you want to read up my review there, you certainly can. So I think that wraps up pretty much everything there is to know about the basics of this bottle, except it is a single barrel. They also do a different variation of it, which, if I remember rightly, is the small batch, which is a blend of 12 different selected casks. But that retails for the same price and has the same ABV. So it would be a good comparison between this one and that to see if there are any differences in the notes, because this really should be a bit more complex, maybe a bit more developed, being a single cask. So thank you, Brian, for sending me this. We'll just get straight on to the tasting and give it a go at a healthy 50% ABV. Not done a bourbon review for quite some time, so I figured I'd have to get one out of the way, and Brian's just happened to be the one I picked out. So on the nose, what we're getting: Well, it's bourbon, but it's not jumping out of the glass in the same kind of heavy-handed way that bourbons can. It's a bit more creamy. It's not particularly oak heavy in the same way as traditional bourbons. I think this is, I don't know if the word artisan really applies. Craft, certainly. It's got that kind of unique DNA to it that you can tell it's not come out of a massive distillery. It's actually quite a complex nose on this one. There's lots going on here. So yes, you're getting the typical honey, caramel. I always seem to pick up a maple type note, which must just be the character of the white American oak. Of course, they use virgin oak. They can't use reused casks. It has to be all virgin. But it does have a butteriness to it. Slightly salty, even. Yeah. It's got, I wouldn't say it's a Campbelltown characteristic, but it does certainly have a bit of a maritime salt going on there. Yeah, that's a decent nose on the palate. So, the thing that popped into my mind immediately in terms of flavour is cinnamon toast. Cinnamon toast that's been fried in butter. Yes, it's got the classical tastes of a bourbon to it. It's got that heavy, spicy oak finish to it, but not as heavy as you would expect because it doesn't have the rye. There's lots of vanilla, there's caramel, there's definitely oak, but see, you've got that buttery cinnamon toast. It doesn't have malt per se. It's got barley, but I'm getting a malted piece of buttered toast which has been fried and topped with cinnamon dust. A little bit of astringency. In terms of texture, it's oily and viscous and mouth coating. The alcohol, it's there. It seems to be nipping at the sides of my tongue just to make itself known, but it's not at all heavy. If you take a deep breath, you can pick the alcohol up, but shallow, careful nosing, you don't get any other real alcohol burn. That is a very delicious bourbon. Very much so. So we'll put a little bit of water in there, and we'll just give this another. So there is Scotch mist popping up there. I don't know if you'll be able to make any of that out on the glass, but I'm getting Scotch mist. I'm getting more of the classical bourbon notes there. The nose. That handles water really, really well. You know what? Up until this point, I don't think I've ever had bourbon that I could actually call an everyday sipper. There's always been something a little harsh. Unrefined isn't really the word I want to use, but full on, where after maybe 1 or 2, 3 at a push, you have enough and you want to try something different. This seems a bit more it's got enough complexity, it's got enough flavours. That is a damn fine bourbon. And in terms of the price, when I was looking at the research and seeing $64.95 for a bourbon I'd never heard of, I was thinking to myself, that's expensive. Given typically you're in the UK supermarkets, I think the most expensive bourbon that you find on a supermarket shelf is £40. And yes, you can go online to the websites I mentioned and they run into the hundreds of pounds. So this is comparatively cheap compared to some offerings you can get, but expensive compared to supermarket offerings. But this is worth it. This is a really good bourbon. Yeah, so thank you very much, Brian, for doing that dram swap and sending me a sample of this. I'm glad I've tried it. Would I buy a bottle? I've got that much to finish before I write the review up to decide whether I would buy a bottle. Cheers.